All right, I think
Okay.
we're live. Welcome to the live stream. Okay, we're talking about alternative reasons why biracial people don't date each other. And Toenail, he wanted to bring his perspective on things. I'm totally with it. I'm totally for it. So yeah, we can get into it. And George was here, of course. That's my road dog. It's my ride or die. So yeah. So what's up, y'all? Hello, guys.
Well, hello,
Hi.
hello, hello. Good
Mm-hmm.
evening to
Hey, good
everyone.
evening, folks.
Good evening. Welcome. We got Mr. Anthony Ali. We got Lynn. We got Jose. We got LaGoldie. What's up, y'all? Hey, y'all. So, yeah, we got some people in the chat. And yeah, so I want to look at the comments real quick. It says, me and my husband are MGM. I wonder why biracials don't date each other. I could see MGM and biracials. No, because I see MGM being annoyed if they biracial tries to deny their identity. Interesting. Ooh. Some do, but usually don't think of it as being anything special. Hi, Jose. I never see any mixed people that even identify as mixed. I'm always the only mixed person everywhere I go, and I'm a guy, and I'm gay. Oh, it says hello. So yeah, that's interesting. It's like yeah, that we talked about that on my live stream. It's like most mixed people don't even aren't even really allowed to even identify as mixed, or they get attacked and say they hate their black side, or you know what I'm saying. So that is like something that definitely does. And this is for I really because me, my stance on it, this is for people who actually do want to date other like biracial people like them. Of course, not everybody is going to want to date. It's fine. Like you could date whoever you want. Like it's cool. But there is like a lot of like hindering factors for biracial people who do want to date each other, and it's like there's a lot of like programming and obstacles that are in the way of that. So yeah, I would love to hear your perspective, Toenail Breaker.
Yeah. That is absolutely true. There's a lot of programming. There's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of ostracizing. There is a lot of stuff that in their rearing up, depending on their exposure, that's going to have an influence on them, depending on that will determine how and where they're going to gravitate towards. But the first thing, though, I want to be able to focus on is this particular issue is something rather unique to the United States. It's not something that is
Mm-hmm.
outside of the United
True.
States because I've met Asiatic people or what you will call Blasians, etc. They love to hook up with each other. And when they are
Wow.
not one Blasian meets another Blasian, yeah, they love to hook up with each other.
Right.
Eurasian people would love to hook up with each other. They find each other. These things they attract each other like magnets. However, though,
Right.
there's one particular part, but I find this to only be within the United States. Outside of the United States, it's not so much of a reason. Like in Africa, I know a lot of people in a lot of, a matter of fact, a lot of YouTube content creators that are from Ghana and they're from Ghana and Nigeria that are mixed race. They sometimes find mixed race people and they hook up with them, and there are some cases that some don't, and some may find a white partner or a black partner. But I just want to elaborate on that. It's not a universal thing. It's something that is completely and strictly isolated mostly in within the United States.
That's
And
so
what
true.
I find is where the conflict comes from, or where it's those who are mixed with white and black. Not with no other mixtures. It's just specifically those that are mixed with white and black, who have a white parent and a black parent. So why is this? Well, one of the things is that growing up, I met couple of girls back in the times coming up in high school, etc., that were mixed race or that were had a white parent or a white grandparent, but their phenotype, and all that matters is that their phenotype, by all means, was not a West Central African phenotype, which is, in my perspective, I define as being black. If it's not that, then it's either a mixed race phenotype or more close to more to the European spectrum of a phenotype, but it's not black in a racial sense. So one of the things that I notice is I've attempted to date mixed women, and I didn't have a problem with it. Did I go searching and seeking? No, I didn't. However, if I did run across a woman that was mixed race or she was a mulatto woman, just as myself, um, there were a couple of things that we did not attract to each other. Is one of the things is personality. But everybody can say, well, that's in general. But no, it's a different type of personality because I believe we have high standards where we look for a specific type of individual to be a specific type of way. And now a lot of this is basically influenced by culture. So I'm going to start with the most prominent one. The most prominent one is a lot here within the United States that you would find a lot of mulatto women or Euro Afrik mixed women. What they would do is that they have a tendency of dating black men. But when you search back into the history to find out they're rearing up, guess what? That black father isn't there. That
Oh.
black father
Mm-hmm.
dipped a while
Mm-hmm.
back.
Yep.
So then they feel, so what happens is you have this resentment that the introduction of the black culture has not been given to them. So they dive into it because they feel that they have been deprived from it. So then, therefore, they start identifying themselves as black and just completely throwing their white side up underneath the bus or disregarding their white side
Mm-hmm.
because of some influences that may come from the black community or
Mm-hmm.
towards white people in general
Or
or hatred.
I posted a video of a girl that was like totally disrespecting her white father because she was like, "Oh, he was racist to me." And then there was another video of it. It was like, "Oh, I don't want to have nothing to do with white people. I only want to be around black people. I only want to be around have black partners because of how, her white father treated her by being racist to her." So it's like that's a big thing too. It's like they really want to totally disown a lot of biracial people experiencing racism from their white side and their white parent, and then they totally want to disown and totally get away from that side of themselves because of their experiences with that too. So that's a big thing too.
Yes,
Mm.
correct. So, so to keep everything focused, yes, I'm just focused on one perspective,
Yeah.
and
Sorry.
yeah, they're broken up in clusters, but I'm going to try to go through each of the different types of clusters that you have for different reasons. So, oops, sorry, apologies for that. So then what happens is they end up having white guilt. So imagine this person who has white guilt. Then they meet another mixed race person who has no white guilt. They're proud to be mixed. Are those
Right.
two
That's not gonna
are those two
clash.
compatible? They're not
No.
compatible at all.
So true.
Not
Wow.
compatible. Although they're both black and white mixed, they both have white moms, or even if they had both black moms, no, they will not mix, especially when one comes up from an environment where they have been taught to respect, to identify by both, and to honor both of your sides of your parents and be proud of who you are, not throw one set of the chromosomes basically up onto the bus and you only represent based on one set of chromosomes and that's it. So you have that they're not going to mix. I ran into a girl that matter of fact, she was a mixed race girl that was from Haiti, but she came but she assimilated here into the culture here. And then let me tell you, this is a girl that with blue eyes, blonde hair, similar to the phenotype of George Orr, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Similar to him. I mean, if
Yes.
you were to see these two, they would look like brother and sister. If they were to call each other brother and sister, you would believe it 100% because of the blue eyes, blonde hair, everything you would have. But no, she identified herself as black. And she justified it by using the one drop rule. Now, I'm talking about around in 1991, 1992, when I was in high school when I heard this. So that kind of was like a repel of how could you just and that so me as a person, I'm proud of my white side and I'm proud of my black side, but to hear somebody basically say that, it becomes compulsive and like a rejection. So you kind of like draw a line between you and that person. It's high and by how it is. You don't have you don't want to be able to have you can't there's no magnet between you two. There's a physical attraction, but there's nothing else. If you want to do drive-bys, yeah, okay, you'll do drive-bys, but there will be no commitment there between two people because they have nothing sharing that is essential, such as a cultural or perspective in a foundation where they can join on. And then now we're going to move on to the other one now. Let's say, for instance, both people they have white moms. They both represent them. They both where mother and father, where the both mother and father basically are in the families, right? But then you have once, but you have one, any one of the biracial individuals, right? They more incline towards black culture. Now we know how what comes after that when you do that, when you go down that alley. And then you have one, and the other biracial, they more gravitate towards white culture.
Hmm.
Are those
Right.
two going to are they going to are they going to meet, or are they going to hook up? No, they're not, because they'll be like, we have nothing in common.
Hmm.
Now, let's say now let's go down another alley and just say, let's look upon it a little bit more defined. I'm going to the micro aspect of it now. So now we go down, says, okay, let's say about two biracial people, they both more gravitate white, right?
Hmm.
And less black. However, they're white families. One comes from, I guess, I'm going respectfully saying this. One is comes from a redneck family, and the other one comes from an Italian family. Think they're going to hook up? No, they're not.
Mm-mm.
They're not
Still
going to
cultural
hook up.
differences. Yep.
There is
Hmm.
cultural perspectives involved into it, which basically make us not completely polar opposites of people that retract from each other, because the attraction is actually in culture, in ethnic affiliation, where you can associate with that person a little bit better. Now, someone made a comment is, and why do MGMs hook up? Because most MGMs basically go one direction. It's not like mixed race people or biracial or mulatto or Euro-Afric people, however you want, whatever you want to basically call us, is that our cultural basis is dynamic. It
Yep.
could be our cultural basis is dynamic. It's not the same. Just because, like, say, for instance, let's say, for instance, even people whose parents or their father or whatever is from the African American culture or from the African American stock, does it mean that, okay, they have something to relate to? No, because there's another factor involved in is basically the white side. And and a lot of people get confused that white culture is not the same. That's why you have different types of branches of political parties. You have extreme left, you have conservatives, you conservatives, you have liberals, and you have the extreme left. You have these different perspectives, and who are the majority of the? Or do all four of these different aspects agree with each other, being of the same racial group? No,
No.
they don't. So then how? So then we can't label and say we can't try to take ourselves and then say, well, because we're biracial, we also, we all should. Why don't we get together because we're all biracial? Because people don't hook up based on racial preference, not racial preference. Because you are of a particular race, we should hook up. There are a lot more other things that are behind that,
Right.
and the major factor is definitely and absolutely from what I've seen growing up, and it's also to some of my preferences. Y- I could see growing up, I dated majority all white women. I've never dated a black woman in my entire life. Well, actually, well, no, I never dated. I've probably messed around a Nigerian woman at one time, but that was it. That was the first, and never happened. Nothing happened after that. Well, it wasn't nothing. We just didn't click. There was nothing there. I had a part of my culture she couldn't click with, and there was no clicking involved, right? I've dated mixed race women, the same thing, but it didn't last. We're talking about a the most probably 6 weeks, and that was it. It was done. It was finished. But but dating white women, dating non-black women or Asian women or Arab women or or well, I have to, well, yeah, or that, or a Jamaican woman, because you have this really fair skin Jamaican women. There was one Jamaican one that I refer to in the history as being mixed race. Yeah, the relationships lasted a very long time because there was a common denominator. There was a factor involved in how we were able to basically to sync with one another. If you don't have that sync and your sync is only based on a biological makeup, it's going to fail miserably.
Absolutely. It is boils down to cultural differences and how like black and white they're the complete opposites of each other, and then like a lot of biracials either lean towards being more culturally black identified, and some of them lean towards being more culturally white identified, and it's like those two are not really gonna click. They're not gonna really. So that's what it really does boil down to at the end of the day. In my case, I was raised more in like a white culture. I was raised, but then my mom, she wanted to make sure that I was exposed to like my black side as well. So I was in Atlanta for 10 years, and that's where I met my husband, and it worked out because it's like I know both sides of my culture. So he's more black culturally identified, but it works because it's like, yeah, I know black culture too. I'm that's part of my culture as well. So it's like that's why I'm like it's so important for biracial people to really know and be exposed to both sides. So it's like either way, like we could come together. It's like if you're more white culturally identified, I love and respect that part of my culture. If you're more so I do think it does boil down to how you view yourself culturally, right? So that is like the biggest
Yeah,
thing. Absolutely.
yeah, that is the biggest
Me
thing, and
too,
that's the
Lynn.
most determining factor involved to it. So you can't really compare us with MGMs. Also, because MGMs have a standardized culture that they gravitate towards and how they identify themselves. With us, as those coming from directly from a black parent and a white parent, right off, right off
Right.
of the plate, it's we're still in this process of trying to, okay, which whom we want to be with, whom we're going to have a better relationship with. Some people just end it very early and says, I'm going to go this way, and only one, they're only going to go one way because of a bad experience or a prejudice or something, or hate towards either black people or hate towards white people, and then they don't want any affiliation to deal with it. Not to mention another factor. Well, it's not like if you meet a mixed race person back in your teenagehood or in the 20s that to find someone single during those times, it's kind of rare. What I mean by rare is that, yeah, when I was coming, I did bump into a couple of mixed race people, and they weren't exactly single or available, to
Right.
go and to go out with them.
Yep.
So those are the couple of things it's not like they are were available like how white women are or black
Right.
women are. It's not as common as available. It's just the fact is just white women and black women are more available than mixed race women or mixed race men.
Absolutely. I want to bring George in the conversation because I read a Reddit, and he was saying, he's more white, culturally identified biracial, and he was around like he went to a predominantly white, institution, a predominantly white college, and how he likes to date white women and stuff, but it felt like it was like him being half black was such like a hindrance to it. It's like, oh yeah, I would like you said, a drive by, like I'll mess around with you, have my fun, but I wouldn't seriously consider marrying you. So it's kind of like, even if you do, like, that's why it's so important for us to at least have that option, because it's like, because I want can you speak on your experience with when you were dating white women, George? Because I know that that's something that definitely affects like biracial people, that it's like even if you do want to date white women, because you're half white, you're part white, so it's like that's an option as well. You have all these options on the table, but still there was still like experience with that, dealing with like a racist people. So I would love to hear your experience on that, George, or if you want to talk about that part.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, it also kind of like ties back into what Tonell was talking about in regards to us either going one way or the other. But then also, I think it can even be an even deeper like subject issue too. So a lot of us also do come from self hatred as well, and it also ties back into what Tonell Breaker was talking about in regards to whether We will even harbor maybe some anti-black or anti-white sentiments. In my case, I definitely was self-loathing, and I actually harbored a lot of anti-black sentiments. So then that's where I was just swinging just only towards the white side and just only investing myself into white women, because I had this mentality is that, well, I don't like my blackness, so I'm just going to get as far away from it as I can and just go with a white girl. However, it does backfire, and it does kind of set us back a lot. And then it also creates like a very bad perception in others in regards to us. So if like another mixed race person sees what I was doing and just the mentality that I was in, it's gonna put like a bad taste in her mouth as to what her people are like, which is self-loathing in her perspective. So therefore, she chooses to just go down the monoracial route and get with maybe like a monoracially like identifying black man, since her own men are too self-loathing. So that's what I've also noticed. But then also, a lot of us have the saviors complex as well. We see that, okay, like some other group is being like, I guess you can say, oppressed, or is being wiped out of existence, or is being attacked. In my eyes, I looked at white people as being the ones who were being attacked due to like a lot of divisive anti-white rhetoric I felt that was just going all around the place. So since I was like, well, I have a lot of Euro blood, so therefore, why don't I try to do my honors by basically diluting out my blackness and just reabsorbing into the white race, which is being attacked. And then even a lot of us do the opposite. A lot of there's the reason why you see like a lot of like mulatto women with a lot of men who are like the pro-black back to Africa types. Have you guys ever noticed how a lot of those black leaders have like a woman who looks like us?
Yeah, and it's
Because
the same
she
thing.
like
She
yeah,
wants to get rid of her
yes,
black,
because she's
her white genes.
her whiteness.
She
Yeah,
wants to dilute
she's
it out.
basically like,
Yeah.
well, I want to dilute. Yeah, because her also like she also kind of has like my attitude at the time, but except it's the other way around,
Mm-hmm.
where she's like, well, I see black men and women as being continually racially disenfranchised. I see them as being attacked, so therefore, let me step up and try to help these people and do my honors by diluting my whiteness and reabsorbing into blackness. It's a
Yeah.
very
It's a
toxic and healthy
mess.
mentality to have, and
It's a
but that's just
mess.
only a common thing in America,
It's an
because kind of
American
like
thing.
what
Yep.
exactly,
Mm-hmm.
because also in addition to what even Toenail was addressing, this is not a universal phenomenon, because I've talked to other people like ourselves in the country of Mauritius, which is that small island country in the Indian Ocean.
Mm-hmm.
It's like kind of off the coast of Madagascar. A lot of people who are like us there, they date each other. And even in the former Portuguese colony of Cape Verde, which is off the coast of, I believe it's Ghana or Senegal, they tend to mingle with people like ourselves. And even I've been connecting with those of Caribbean origin. If you guys have ever heard of the Cayman Islands in the Caribbean, it's not that far off from Jamaica. Those
Love the Cayman
people,
Islands.
yes, the Cayman Islands, correct. Those people look like us, and they are very happy that they actually have like a shared culture, a shared like religion. They're mainly like Protestant Christian, and they love the fact that they get to mingle among those like themselves. And the same case has even been in Aruba, since I actually have a good friend there who actually has family in Aruba, and he told me though that hey, it's a quote unquote mixed paradise. So those countries don't get so invested into like schizophrenic American politics, whereas a lot of our people get very invested in like the schizophrenic quote unquote woke politics. And that in itself is what is also probably precluding us from dating one another, because like myself, I don't want to get that invested into all the woke politics, because I've already been there and done that with the schizo politics. I don't want that. But a lot of our people are into that. And that in itself is probably what's going to make us feel that we probably can't really date each other, because some of us swing one way or the other, or we're battling with our own personal demons, or we have too much of that Messiah Moses saviors complex going on.
Hmm.
So if that stuff is going on with our people here in the US, then don't really expect them to hook up.
It's a damn mess. It's a damn mess. Okay, I got some questions. It says, do
Yes.
you think about the cultural experiences of your children when you select a partner? And that's kind of, it's so true. You do think about like the culture. Do you guys, that's a good question right there.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of glad that question came up because
Mm-hmm.
as throughout my experience, I actually develop a philosophy. One, you want what is best for your child, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you have the ability and the resources to make everything better for your child, then you're going to secure that or assure that. Well, I have this policy about myself. Wherever I live, I believe in assimilation. I believe in racial assimilation as well too, in that whole context. Meaning, if I was to move to China, I would want a Chinese wife to live there because I want the success for my kids. And for my kids to basically to assimilate into the Chinese, the homogenous Chinese culture and environment, and like and so on, because I want the best for them. This is how I see it. I don't look a lot different from a lot of people. When people say they want kids, the first thing that images in their head is kids that look like them. Kids having kids is
Mm-hmm.
kid regardless. If my kids are white, my brother has white children. I have Asian children. So then, but if I lived in these areas, which is obviously I don't at this particular time, it just I brought Asia home with me in that particular sense. If I
Mm-hmm.
lived in these environments, I would definitely, if I decided I wanted to go there to live, yes. If now let's change it. If I had if my, let me just change the philosophy around a bit because if I move there individual as an individual person, I'm going to live there, plan to live there. Yes, if I want to have a wife and I want to have kids, I don't want to be selective. I'm going to choose from the majority population because that will be best for my kids, as my kids would be able to more blend in and be able to assimilate better more than an individual who might be black. Or if I had a black wife and I'm living there, or I had a mixed race wife and we were living there. No, if I was to choose one from there for that, because they would have a problem assimilating, because everybody living in like places like homogenous countries, etc. Yeah, they do have a bit of a struggle as well too, basically assimilating into those countries. I mean, there's lots of videos that are up like on China and Japan and so on. So they go through a bit of a struggle. But if and now let's say for instance I did like my wife and I was to move to Japan or we was to move to China, etc., I would say, okay, listen, I would try to teach. First of all, I would teach my son and my kids all humanity is the same. And I would obviously teach them the science, how we all look different, etc. But we're all the same. But I will also to put the influence to go with the majority of the group for the succession of your children, since the majority of that group is if they're Chinese, if they're black, if they're European, or they're white. If I was living back home in the Caribbean, then more than likely, yes, I would probably want to be with a woman that was black or Spanish or something of that such because that's an advantage to my children. Doesn't matter if my children doesn't matter that's what I see, and based unfortunately that's how the world turns. I'm seeking for the best opportunities for my children, and that's the focus. That's my focus and perception.
All right, I got two things to say about that. So when it comes to like the UK, like Foster said, oh, it's due to proximity. It's not that deep. So I do think there's different dynamics in the UK because like if you go with the majority, like they said 8% of biracial people date white in the UK. So that's like one thing. They probably don't have like the schizophrenic politics. I don't know what's going on in the UK. I would love for Foster. Foster said he would come up here and talk about it one day. I would love to hear the perspective on like the UK dynamics and stuff. I would love to hear that. And so my other thing I got to say about that is what Mr. Anthony Ali said, because people come to America, they want to like preserve their image and their culture for the most part. They don't really want to assimilate. This is why we're such like a multicultural country, because people come here and they create their own little communities, create their own little places where they could like meet and that they could preserve their own culture and not try to assimilate into but they do want to they're successful in their own right though. If they come over here and work together and actually like to preserve their culture and their community, but at the same time use the opportunities that are here for them. So it's something that's different here. It's like people will come here to preserve their own culture, even though historically America, definitely people come here to assimilate and they wipe out their culture, and so like their kids and their grandkids aren't passed down the culture. But I think that's changed. Like most people want to come here and preserve their language and their heritage and their culture and their image, and so I think it's a little different now. So what you think about that?
I've known there are a lot of people that have attempted to do that. Matter of fact, I have a couple of Moroccan friends, and also I have Moroccan friends. A lot of Chinese tend to try to do that. However, though, somewhere around the line, when you have another culture outside of the bubble that's going on, that your parents are
True.
trying to raise you up in, you are going to become influenced by it.
Yes, they become
Um, uh,
Americanized. You get
yeah,
Americanized.
you're going to become influenced, and although you may carry your traditional cultural heritage with you, it's not to say that you're going to get influenced because, as again, a lot of Arabs, Palestinians, North Africans, Lebanese people. A lot of people that I know, they've tried to do this with their kids. So one of the things they do is they teach them Arabic, they teach them the language, and then, but what happens is that these kids, for some particular reason or another, they don't necessarily stick to Arab culture or Middle Eastern culture fully, except
Mm-hmm.
in the house. But when they get outside, oh man, they completely are influenced by Black culture, and Black culture has a big influence around the
Yep.
world,
Mm-hmm.
and which they want to they grab certain aspects of it and they flow, but they not around their parents though. They don't show it in front of parents. It's after behind closed doors that's when it really comes out. Their language, the way how they speak in presentation completely changes. I've even heard this with people from Asian people as well too, like Chinese and Japanese people that come here. They behind closed doors and around their parents, they're isolated. They operate in a different way, but outside, code switching basically occurs.
Yeah, code switching. That's something that we can relate to, because we're a part of like two different cultures. It's like, that's definitely something that. But it's like we're stuck in the middle of something. It's like, we're half part of like the dominant culture and race in America, white people, and then half a part of like a minority culture. But it's still, these are two really strong cultures, right? It is like we're stuck in them, and it's like a cultural war, a cultural battle that's going on between, and it's like this is why it's so hard for us, because it's like that cultural schizophrenia, what Georgia calls it, and it's like the pick a side thing, and it's like, do you think it'd be best for us as biracial people to just come together and just build our own type of culture, so we could just not always just have to pick a side like type of thing? That's where I think would be best for us. If we come together, build our own communities, build our own type of culture, and we can have like a middle ground there, so it's not just so extreme left or extreme right. There has to be some sort of like middle stable ground in the middle. So what do you think about that?
We can
The
do
only
that. Oh, sorry. You can go right ahead first, Tonell.
Well, yeah. So for me, my perspective in regards to that, that's going to become virtually almost impossible. Let me explain to you the reason why. It's not like the phenomena which basically happened in South Africa, where politics played the isolation. Politics played that was something that was forced upon the people, the division, and forcing people to create a culture of their own, like the South African
That's what's going
colors.
on here. It's politics that's
Okay.
like forcing us to, yeah.
Yeah, but the thing about it is here, politics, what they did is they took two racial groups that were completely separate for eons, forever, that were never recognized as being the same. They took them and basically slapped them together and say, "Yeah, we're going to call you. You're all going to be one race now." And then after in 1967, when Loving versus Virginia overturned the Racial Integrity Act, which contained the one drop rule, and they made it official that saying dictating what people's race are was a violation of the 14th Amendment. Once those political influences were removed, now you're seeing the true nature of things coming out. No, you belong on this side, we're on this end, etc. Because you got to understand is that I think black people have every right. I mean, black people. I mean, the West Central African phenotype. Those people, not the ambiguous ones or the not the ambiguous ones. I'm talking about the West Central African phenotype, what was known as black, and even till today, and is recognized by the majority of the world. A lot of them, but they have a right to come out and say, "Listen, man, what are you doing?" Or to come up to approach you, because it's like they are struggling too. And here you are trying to take advantage of what they are trying to struggle for. It's like you're trying to take from their cake and eat it at the same time. See what I mean? It's kind of, you're kind of double dipping in that particular sense, because you want to jump on this cultural bandwagon, but then your parents did not teach you right, and you were forced on this bandwagon, rather than someone basically properly basically educating and teaching you. Not saying that it cannot happen. I'm just saying it's not going to happen with a group of people who's going to come across with a council and say, well, let's do this. Through our videos, through books through videos, through books, through media, yes, it could probably be done and influence other mixed race people. But the bottom line comes from the parenthood, being raised up, what is taught within the homes.
Yep.
Once it's taught within the homes, then yes, like for you, what you're doing with your kids, etc., raising them up, teaching them their history, teaching them what they are, they grow up to relate to that eventually after a period of time, and obviously, which will affect their identity. So it starts somewhere. Remember now, as I mentioned before, it took about almost 2 centuries before African Americans became a popular name. It started back in the 1700s, when the terminology African American was being used in publications. Then later on in the early 1900s, there's a recording from Malcolm X. It was also starting to be used. Then after that, in 1980s something, in 1980s, I believe, Jesse Jackson is the one that came out, and they said no, they don't want to be recognized as black. They want to be recognized as African American. So now that's how it took off. But it took figures. It took media to actually push this, though. But Giorgio, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I went a little bit too long, but go ahead and just
we
finish
need
yours.
those public figures, though. You know what I'm saying? We need those people. How many? Like somebody said, there's so many people standing up for black people and black rights, and I encourage that. I love that. I respect that. I'm like, but how many people are standing up and speaking for biracial people and actually trying to like?
No one.
Nobody. Who is doing that?
No one.
Who's doing that really? Like
Yeah.
on a public mainstream level scale? Nobody. We got our little YouTube corner. YouTube, but in like I'm talking about on a major visibility level where it's like everybody knows. We don't have that yet. We're working on it. We want that. We're gonna push for that. We're gonna support people who want to speak for us and speak on us and help our community to build. Right. We're gonna definitely support that. We all want that. So yeah, but go ahead, Georgia.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And also, like Tonell, you are very much appreciated with your input and insight, and thank you very much. So yeah, don't ever worry about speaking lengthy at all. Not with us. Oh, but I'll go right ahead and answer. So I mean, like going back to I guess in regards to whether we can really get like in a community established. So I was thinking about how like communities like the Hutterites, the Anabaptists, and like the Amish and Mennonites, and how they came over here and established very much their own enclave and just their own culture. And it works for them. They tend to be isolated. They actually have like principles, they have values, and they actually have like a specific identity that they embrace. We have the potential to do that, but then again, it also boils down to the fact that those people arrived here in North America in the 18th century, and it took them since then to get them to where they are today. And then, Tonell mentions how it took about a couple centuries to get African American even popularized to where it's now being widely used today. It could be quite a while for us to establish the same thing. However, this is where my optimistic side comes in. So, yes, although it took like the Amish and Mennonites, more than 1 century to get them to where they are today, nowadays we have much more sophisticated tools. We have the media. We have a lot of people who are controlling the media. We can actually become public figures now. We have social media. We have the internet to seriously get the word of mouth out there, because that's all that word of mouth. So if we all just actually about us and probably even more in politics or more on the internet, then we will actually become. Now, this isn't also to put down anybody who may identify themselves as like quote unquote non-binary. I mean, that's your business because you have complete autonomy over your own identity. However, you can see how that's very trendy, right? You can see how those people actually have far more recognition than we do. Like, everyone's talking about, or everybody now knows about a quote unquote non-binary individual, but who knows about a Euro-Afric person? I guess since that's like a new term, who knows about us?
That's why we
Who
need a
knows about
community.
our plight? Yes, like who knows about our plight, or who knows about
Nobody.
the implications of identifying the way that we do? Who does?
Nobody, because we don't have our own.
But
We're the only people who get
exactly,
attacked for wanting a community. Like I said in my little post, like
exactly,
you could identify as an animal and find a community for that. Like what the fuck? Like it's
exactly. But
crazy.
but let me ask you this though. So everybody, who is oh gosh, I lost my train of thought. But oh yes, now I remember. So like, who is talking about the non-binary people? Everyone. But who's talking about us?
Nobody. Nobody.
So you see how, although sure, it took the term African American, and yet it may have taken the Amish and Mennonites more than 1 century to be where they are right now. But this whole non-binary trend is only at least about 7 years old. Maybe at least 5 years old, because I didn't start hearing that until like a few years ago, to be honest. But look at how big it is, just due to more sophisticated tools, due to more public figures, and even people in politics and media just coming out in full-blown support of that identity, as well as pushing for it. And look at where it is today. It is well up there above us.
Absolutely. So we can get our
It did not take it did
didn't.
not take a couple centuries for non-binary to become a trend or a fad.
It's so true. It's
So
true.
if people like that can actually become very trendy, then so can we. And in fact, we actually have that potential to even become even above them as far as societal recognition goes. Because at least with those like me, you, and Tonell, we have genetic markers that specifically links us to these racial/ethnic groups. What we have is something that we can't change, whereas somebody who is non-binary is still either biologically male or female. But with us, when it comes to the matters of race and ethnicity, that's a bigger, deeper, fundamental issue than the non-binary trend. So because of that, we have that potential to either get to that level or even above that level. And again, this is not to disparage or put anybody down who may identify that way, because again, you can do what you want because this is a free country and a free world, but you guys get where I'm coming from.
Totally get what you're saying. If we're in the age of information, like information spreads like this, like wildfire, like nowadays. But you know what the hinder is? Us not being able to really pick something we all truly identify with, because there's going to be people who identify as mulatto, people who boils down to mulatto, biracial, mixed, or golden. Like those are the four terms that are like we don't really know which one that we're really going to all really identify as, you know what I'm saying? That's something that is like that's something that's the hindrance right there. Just us deciding on something, But I'm with biracial. I'm thinking like, okay, that's something that we could, work with the term biracial and just work with it until we find something. I don't know, black. I don't know, but that's a whole different topic. We'll talk about that. That's something we definitely have to get down pat eventually. Eventually, just like
Absolutely.
yeah, but we'll
So
get there. We'll get there. I'm
yeah,
confident
we
that
can do it though. It's just like identifying as like biracial or like mulatto or just like the way that we do is
mm-hmm.
very controversial.
It's
And
controversial.
I
Yeah.
think that there honestly are like public like figures and celebrities like even Zendaya, despite what's been going on with her.
Mm-hmm.
I think that probably somewhere in her heart she
Mm-hmm.
wants to do that. She wants to full on come out in support of us,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time she still has a large black following.
Yeah.
And we
And
do know that, like the
it's
black
offensive.
community, much of it is still kind of opposed to us kind of calling ourselves that because they will see it as us trying to secede from them. When in
Yeah.
fact that we're not. We're
Right.
not. It's just, there are different implications that comes along with like being like who we are.
Mm-hmm.
The experience is distinct, and I gotta put it bluntly, we are not the same at
And
all.
that's okay. It's
Because
okay to be
we are
different.
it's
Yeah.
okay, yes, because
Mm-hmm.
like Magic, like with me, you, Magic, and Jake, and you, Tonel, we are the only ones who understand just the nuance of like mulatto identity or biracial identity or mixed race identity, whatever you want to call it. Or I guess the
Mm-hmm.
new term now is okay, we understand just the nuance of the Euro Afric identity then. That is not
Mm-hmm.
what the white community is going to understand, and that is not what the black community is going to understand. That's
No.
only going to be those in the stream who are going to understand that.
Exactly.
And that makes us different, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But going back to Zendaya, she probably wants to shed light on that. But then again, if she alienates a following, especially a large following of hers, and loses their respect, then there goes her money and her career. And
Mm-hmm.
who wants to jeopardize their money?
That's what
To be
Colin
real about
Kaepernick
that.
did. He gave up his career for that, for trying to. But no, but he didn't do it for biracial. He did it for black. He did it for fighting against police
Exactly.
brutality. So that was a
Because
different thing. But he gave up his career
yeah,
for that. But people are not gonna give up their career for biracial people. Let's be real. They're
they're
not.
not.
They're not.
They're not because that's like again is that they don't understand the nuance of just identifying as such. And then
Yeah.
also you're going to gain more resources and more clout and draw more attention to yourself if you say that you are a black man or black woman in America who's been disenfranchised.
Who is
You
that?
are not going to draw as much attention or clout to yourself if you say that, well, hey, I'm actually a mixed race person or biracial who's actually faced racial hostility from both sides. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, you're not. You're just not going to gain
No.
the
Nobody
same kind of,
cares. You're cry
yeah,
racial.
exactly.
Stop being cry racial.
No one's going to care about that at all. I mean, don't get me wrong, there will be people who will, but
Very
is it going to
few.
be nearly at the same level as calling yourself a black woman who was called the N word?
No, nobody's gonna care. Nobody
Exactly.
cares. People, that's one of the big reasons. So I got a couple things to say about that. That's definitely one of the big reasons why we don't in our community, because we don't have any type of social protection whatsoever. Why is it so normalized and it's okay for people to disparage, people for being light skinned and people for being biracial? You could go on a public platform and call them a mutt. You could call them whatever you want, and there's no backlash, there's no outrage, because we don't have a community that collectivizes to actually speak it. It'll be like one person. It's like one individual versus 100. Who's gonna win at the end of the day? If these people are gonna say, hey, they're okay with it, then it's going to be normalized. It's going to be fine versus versus that's why we need our own community, for that type of social protection, so we could have a group that identifies with each other, that's going to collectively stand up as one, not just an individual, but a whole group standing up as one to speak up on these things that'll actually get some pushback. Be like, hey, this is not okay to treat people and talk to people like this. That's one of the
And
reasons definitely why we need
yeah,
our own
and
community, for sure.
you know that in my home state of California, we were actually going to get that until those like Augustus Hawkins came out against it. So like in California, my home state, we were actually going to have a distinct category for people like us. And then that would have paved way for protection laws. But
Yeah. Wow.
Augustus Hawkins, who I guess is a part of quote unquote us, he came out against it back in the 80s because he thought that it was just going to rub the black community the wrong way.
Wow.
Honestly, you should not care at all about who it's going to rub the wrong way. Forget that.
For sure.
Even like, yeah,
I agree.
even
I
just
totally agree.
advocating for your very self, you're always going to have people who look at you sideways for whatever reason. You can't please everybody. In fact, there's no reason in trying to be liked by everybody when you yourself don't even like everyone yourself.
Facts.
So that's just where you just kick the dust off your feet and you keep it moving,
Period.
irrespective of how people may view you. So honestly, shame on you, Augustus Hawkins. Honestly, man, fuck you. We're
Mm.
gonna actually get what we deserve.
Period. I gotta look that up. That's interesting. I'm definitely gonna do some Augustus Hawkins. I'm gonna do some more research about that because we gotta learn from that and to see how we can get those type of classifications and we can get those type of protection laws and see where it failed and see where we could learn from that and see how we could succeed and try again next time and just keep going, until we get what we got, until we get what we deserve. Like we deserve that as a community, as a collective, and we're gonna get there. We'll get there. But I want to talk about what they're talking about in the chat. Somebody said that we need J4 said this. He said that can a new culture form without a common religion or something that foundationally established ritual and common values? I do think we need some type of spiritual foundation or practice. I do think that I'm not really with religion per se. I'm not sure. I don't really claim a religion. I know you're a
So
Christian.
I will say this though, is that now
Let's talk about that.
you guys don't actually have to share exactly like the same faith, but we do need at least a healthy level of spiritual vigilance.
Yes,
Spiritual
I agree.
vigilance is actually why we are in the position that we're in and why we probably don't even date each other because we're just so consumed in just our rotten human flesh. Because let's just be real, the human flesh is rotten. I know that people don't want to hear that, but look, we are consumed with things like pride or greed and just also we're very selfish. And yeah, you may say that it's natural for us to be that way, but just because something is natural, that doesn't mean it's good. Well, it's natural for us to be very selfish and sometimes allow our ego to get the best of us. That's supernatural, right? But is that going to make our relationship great and fruitful? It's not. So therefore, you actually have to deny those parts of you and actually be a little bit more in the spirit as opposed to in the human flesh.
Yeah,
And this
spirituality.
doesn't merely mean that you have to now convert to Christianity or Islam. That's not what I'm trying to say here. You convert to whatever you want. But the spirit is pure, but the human condition is very impure. You have to deny the impure human condition and be more in the spirit. Hence, spiritual vigilance. And once we actually start to implement that action of being more in the spirit, then we will actually start to see some favorable outcomes. But it's up to you guys because I've
Yeah.
already made my decision.
Yeah, definitely. I did that
Just
stream.
saying, just a food for thought.
I would love to hear
Because I just
Tonio's perspective because we did a stream together talking about spiritual principles and foundations that we need. I do believe that spirituality is deeply, deeply very important for us to like be the best people we can be and be. That's that you want your community to be the best people they can be, and that definitely taking spirituality into account is super important. Extremely. So yeah,
exactly. So go
yeah,
right ahead and take it away,
yeah. I would
Tonell.
love to hear
Let's hear
Tonio's
you.
perspective on that.
Well, coming from a historical view, throughout the period of time, many religions, basically people even of the same homogenous group, or I shouldn't use the word homogenous. Let's put people of the same racial group, people from the same ethnic group, that had different religious beliefs. This happened in the history of Jerusalem. This happened in Saudi Arabia back in the 700s century. It happened back within these times when this actually existed. And everywhere that you go, Confucianism in basically in Asia, when certain religions were introduced, Malaysia, etc. When they were introduced, a particular religion was introduced to them. Everybody coexisted with each other. There was conflict. Yes, there was going to be conflict. There's conflict between ethnic groups where religion has nothing to do with it. It's just something common within the human nature for us to do. Some people are going to be uncomfortable with other people, and some people have no problem coexisting with other people. So here within the United States, having a common spirituality, that may not be the answer because people of the same racial group can coexist with each other, being of different, being of different religious group. A lot of African Americans that are here within the United States are Christian. A lot of them are Muslim. A lot of them are Jewish. That basically they take up the Jewish religion. They get along very well. But here's the thing: reason why they get along very, very, very extremely well that I've noticed, because they have common
Yep.
principles and values that they basically follow in the way how they treat each other. That they have a successful relationship. Versus if so, it does have an impact, but it depends on what you're doing with it. So you don't have to be all up under the same umbrella. Then we will never learn anything. We would not be. I don't feel if we were so much alike, we wouldn't have something to learn from the other in order to progress.
Good point. We do need the same values and principles, first of all, in order to unify, right? We definitely need that first. Because spiritual practice and religion, that could get there's it's so that even Christianity, there's the Mormons, the Jehovah Witness, the Seventh Day Adventists, there's the all these different sectors of Christianity, right? Because it's very diverse, so many different belief systems out there. You know what I'm saying? Because belief systems could vary. Just there's just so much. So it's like, but the foundation is the principle and the values that we definitely need to unify. We need to get that down, the foundation, and then you could get to any belief system you want, whatever you believe that Jesus is coming back this day or whatever, all these belief systems that people want to believe about, whatever. But the foundation should be values. I definitely agree with that. And I want to talk about I heard somebody say white guilt, when it comes to like biracial people who are half white, half black, having
Yeah.
white guilt. But I want to talk about, I think this is something that prevents us too from dating. There's a lot of people who have biracial guilt. Like they feel bad about being born biracial. It's like, they internalize, I did a live stream about this. They internalize these anti-mix narratives from racists who are like, oh, race mixing is bad and you shouldn't even exist. Like you're an abomination. You're just horrible. So they feel guilty and bad about existing. So when they see other biracial people, it's like they're repulsed. They're like, "Oh, I don't want nothing to do with other. We shouldn't even exist." So that's another factor that definitely keeps us from coming together as a community. People who have that internalized um anti-mix
Yeah,
narrative. That's something
it
that's
goes back.
definitely
Yeah, it goes back to what I said in regards to us also coming from self hatred,
itself.
which is what I
Yeah.
did,
Uh
which
huh.
is where I also came from at the time. I
Mhm.
mean, thank God I'm I'm out of that mentality,
Yeah.
but
That's
it's
why
a
I'm
pretty
so.
common pattern for a lot of
Mhm.
us to be in the mentality that I was
Mhm.
in at the time. In other
Right.
words, self
That
hatred.
that's why I go so hard to try to praise this and try to see the positives and be like, hey, we're amazing people. I love the work we're doing. Like we want to see the best in like who else is doing that? Everybody else is saying no, mixed people. We shouldn't praise them. It's bad. They're just a fetish. They're just this. Like it's really looked at like if you praise mixed people, you fetishize them. But we're not coming like we're mixed ourselves. So it needs to come from mixed people praising other mixed people and building each other up. So it's not looked at as like, oh, you're just doing this out of some fetish for them. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, I'm doing this to encourage other mixed people, biracial people, mulatto people, whatever
You
our term
you
that
want to know
of the
something?
day is. But yeah, go ahead.
It's funny that you say that about fetish. That's honestly is very weird because like after the
Mm-hmm.
George Floyd incident, we can see how the whole world erupted over that, right? So
Yes. Yes.
are we going to say that? Are you guys fetishizing black men?
No, we're not gonna say that. We're not gonna say
Exactly. So
that.
I'm just like it will be stupid and hypocritical for anybody to say that just because we're going to like advocate on other people's behalf that all of a sudden we are going to fetishize them. I'm like, but
Fetishizing them.
you guys fetishized George Floyd and black men.
That
That but
that
that
So
yeah, but that might think
that
that like, if people do choose to ally with us, they're gonna be like, oh, you just fetishize mixed people and want to sleep with them. If people do want to have our be allies with us. So yeah, I would like to hear you guys, but I do think that I'm not gonna stop praising us and trying to uplift us and trying to because we've had so much hatred and people saying we shouldn't exist and that we're about like all this crazy stuff. So I'm just gonna always uplift us because we deserve that. We need to counter that like things so biracial people don't have that internalized self-hatred of feeling guilty for existing, right? So yeah, I would like go ahead, Tonell, sorry.
so The fetishizing thing, that word has been used and abused just as the much of just as much as the term racist is being used. Is when I hear it, it becomes like the wind going over my shoulder. It means absolutely nothing because people are using it based on a program. Because to justify, well, why one person from one racial group would be attracted to another person of another racial group. I'm so sick and tired of hearing it being used because they're more than likely they fetishized each other, or they fetishize this person, or this person fetishized that person,
Yeah, we're
etc.
just products of fetishization. That's what a lot of people think.
Yeah,
So,
or products, and this is how it turns into. So when you say, yeah, you have a, so that's what it's translating into. Just like how everything that is racist of making a comment of something. Now this is how it's turning into, and it's only coming from one group of people. By the way, just to let you know, within the United States, it's only one group of people that are saying this. I've never heard, never heard someone from Africa. I never heard someone from China, no one from Japan, from Malaysia, from Indonesia, from India. Nobody never mentions this. Not even back home from the Caribbean ever use that terminology. It's what everybody basically just uses and respects is that, well, you may be attracted to a particular phenotype. Like me growing up from since I was like 10 years old, right? I used to watch kung fu movies. Love to watch kung fu cinema. I know I'm speaking my age now. I used to watch kung fu cinema, but in the environment that I was in, which was predominantly black, with only about 15% of whites, of whites in the community. And when I saw Asian people, I was like, wow, I wish I could be around them. Oh man, I like how Asian women look. It's something that I became basically attract. It's something that I became attracted to, but I had no access to it. See what I mean?
right.
So it's becoming really extremely plastic when people are using the word fetishization for every single thing, and then yes, you want to label us as being as being a product of fetishization because it didn't work out. Well, let's not forget what racial group within the United States has the highest rate of single mother homes. So let's not forget that
Mm,
particular part.
right.
Because
Ooh.
if we want to get nasty, we could take up and throw the mud as well too. What was that based on? So as again, people are using these justification as again indirectly, which is another form of being racist themselves when they use these terminologies, and because they just don't understand, or because it doesn't fit their perspective, why somebody else will be attracted to somebody else who may not look like may not look have their phenotype. You know, I think I would feel really uncomfortable about dating somebody that looks like my sister. You see what I'm saying? I mean, to me, because that's how I grew. That's me. That's what I developed it. That's what
Oh,
I
the brother
developed
and
it into.
sister thing. Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's something that prevents a lot of like biracial people getting together because people say, "Oh, you guys look like your brother and sister." That
Oh,
that
yes,
that was the thing.
yes,
Yeah, I
yes,
forgot about that.
yes,
That's
yes, yes,
that's what a lot
yes,
of people
yes.
say.
Honestly, I got to let me jump in and quickly say something
Yeah,
about
go
that. That
ahead.
does not me at all.
It
I'm
doesn't bother
like,
me.
I have liked in recent times women who could look like my quote unquote sister because we have similar features.
Mm-hmm.
But I am never going to think like that at all
Me
because,
neither.
like,
I get
going
that
back
comment
to,
a lot.
yeah, because going back to the aforementioned island countries I pinpointed, such as Mauritius or Cape Verde or the Cayman Islands or Aruba, they don't have that mentality. So I don't think we should either.
I agree. And going back to the fetishization thing, I love what you're saying, Tonel Burger. If you're attracted to a certain group or phenotype, it shouldn't be shamed and be like, oh, you're just fetishizing them, and oh, it's self hatred. I did a community post about that. I want to know your opinion about this. I see that no other group of people says you hate yourself if you want to date somebody of another race besides in the black community, where that's the main talking point is like, oh, you hate yourself if you want to date like a white girl, if you want to date Asian or anybody outside of your race. It's like out of self hatred. So that's what people think that affects biracials who are black and white, because it's like, oh, you're a product of self hatred, of self hating daddy or a self hating mama, or you know what I'm saying. So what do you think? And that affects us. It's like, oh, we're just products of self-hatred, you know what I'm saying? So it's like something that we internalize, and there comes the biracial guilt again. It's like, oh, I'm guilty, I feel bad for existing. It's like, oh, one of my parents hated themselves and they created me instead of being with another black person, creating a fully black person, and they feel guilty about, not being fully black, so it's like that whole self-hatred narrative is definitely something we have to talk about, because it does create a lot of self-hating or biracials, so yeah.
Remember now, there's only
Hmm.
one group of people within the United States that brings that up, that
It's coming from mostly from
commercializes
the
that.
black community, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Hmm.
coming from them, right? It is a form of gaslighting.
It's
That's
gaslighting.
it's just all it is gaslighting. That's all it is. It's because it's their self racism, internal racism towards white. Remember now, it's this
Oh, hold
type
on.
of gaslighting.
Let me address foster. Yeah, it does happen. I said that too. It does happen within other people will disown, like white people will disown other white people if they date out, but they never say that they're like self-haters, you know what I'm saying? So it's like that's just that unique narrative is only coming from the black community. It's not coming from, other. It does happen, of course. We know that. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Tonio.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for the clarification, Foster. Yeah, I see where you're coming from because my mom has told me stories. She hasn't been spat on, but my mom, because she wanted to associate it with non-white people when she was coming up. My mom's from Portland, Oregon, and where anybody knows that state historically,
No
that was
way.
considered to be the white state,
I live next to
and
Portland, Oregon. Wow, that's crazy.
and
Like
and
back in the '90s, Portland had a lot of like neo-Nazi skinhead groups.
Damn.
A lot of them too. It was a
yeah.
very hot spot for that kind of
I live in the
activity.
Pacific Northwest, so that's where I grew up. I already know. I already know. Yeah.
So in regards to that, so my mom used to tell me stories, right? How whenever she hung around people that were non-white, she would always get comments from white men. You should be around your own kind. You shouldn't be with them. You should be around your own kind. Just about, and this is what made my mom repel against want having nothing to do that where she disliked white men so much. She disliked white men so much, and being told by every white person, every white man that she, like once a week or once a month or whatsoever it is. My mom said she had to get the hell out of the United States, and she moved to the Caribbean, into a black country. It's the
Yeah,
funny
when
thing,
you try to
and pop, here we
control.
come.
No, hi. But somebody jumped in. But when you do, I talk about this with somebody else, and he's spot on. When you try to control the women of your community, and you don't let them have a choice of like who are you going to choose, you have to force them. You're only the women. Nobody wants to be controlled. Nobody wants to be controlled. So it's like you're going to choose whoever you want to choose. You know what I'm saying? So I do think if we do try to form a community and culture, I don't think we should force nothing upon the women or force nothing upon the men. Like you have to date each other, or we're gonna spit on you and we're gonna hate you. I think that's crazy. Like that is crazy. Come on, that'd be hypocritical of us. That's not the word. That'd be that would be hypocritical. That would not really make sense coming from us, since we're products of mixed people. We're products of two different race parents. But I do think that it should be a natural thing, right? It should come naturally if you do choose to be with this person, and that's something that I wish I'm gonna talk about it with him. He's somebody in my Discord, but we talk about that all the time. How that like men trying to control who women date. It just trying to control women. It just don't work. It's not healthy. It doesn't work, and that happens in the white community, the black community. It happens in every community, and it's not healthy. It doesn't work. So, what you think about that?
Well, before I go into that, it, that, well, we all know what happens in America, right? When you tell an American woman, regardless of what racial group she belongs to or what she is, if you tell her what to do or give her the instructions of what to do, it can backfire.
It's not gonna
Yes,
work.
I mean my mom is one of them, and my mom is from the baby boomers generation. And let me tell you this, she is probably, I would say, one of the first group of feminists in that particular, because I kind of refer to my mom as being a feminist, as one being of the feminist movement. She did not like being told what to do from a man. But I don't think it's about, from what I learned from my mom, it's not about not being told what to do by a man. It's how it's presented.
Mm.
It's how it's
Wow.
presented. Because, listen, I'm going on 17 years being married. But of
Mm-hmm.
course, no, my wife is not from America. But my wife, we sit down and we have adult conversations. We set expectations. But a lot of families and people, when they get married for the wrong reasons, and they don't set expectations before getting married. You need to come to a mutual agreement before getting married or getting involved with each other. And that's where I think a lot of people miss out, because a lot of the traditional American culture, whereas there was function within the home. The man, of course, was the one that directed everybody, and the woman basically, in the absence of her husband, basically took charge of things and took care of the home, took her around while the man went out and did the hard labor work to bring home to support his family overall. So I do believe that there should be some sort of function within a household, and now that not everybody doing its own thing, because this is where it comes down to, having a healthy marriage and a healthy house home. And if you do that, your children more than likely will come out to being mentally healthy as well too at the
Absolutely.
same time.
Absolutely. And I'm going to address Foster's comment. He said, men of all communities gatekeep. Here in the UK, women from some communities have been murdered by their male relatives for dishonoring the family. And that's crazy. That's extreme, okay? We're not going to be around killing women, okay? That's insane to me. I'm like, wow. But
Yeah,
yeah,
what he is referring to is called honor killing, and all honor
that's
killing has
insane.
basically been around for
Ugh,
centuries. You can find
let's
it
not
in
do that.
almost any ethnic group in historically that has done this, because they brought shame to the family. But as again, we're in the 21st century. A lot of cultural or ethnic groups are still in the dark ages with it and need to basically be caught up on it. But the only way that's going to happen is that assimilation and influences from other cultures should be able to inspire other people and other groups.
So here's something really interesting that somebody shared with me, and it was like why some communities fail and some thrive. And it comes back to mating choices, right? It comes back. So in one community, it's like if you don't give women a choice and you force them upon somebody, and the men are entitled, and they're gonna have a woman no matter what because it's forced. It's not a choice for the women. What's the incentive for those men to build in those communities? They don't have to build anything because they're gonna get everything they want already. So they're not gonna build nothing. They're not gonna sustain no community. They're not gonna build infrastructure. They're not gonna build anything, right? So versus communities where it gives a woman a choice, it's like the women are always gonna go for the best men, right? So if you have where men are competing and actually trying to build and be the best man, that's a community where things get done and things are going to be built because what's the main driver of men is women at the end of the day, right? So if you have a community where the men are building and competing, you're going to build a community. You're actually going to have something to offer. There's going to be the communities are going to get built. Things are going to get done, and the woman is going to choose the best man and carry the best offspring. So it's actually that's like nature's way. That's how it is naturally, right? And in any in nature, the men always compete, and then the woman chooses the best man, and that's how things. That's nature. That's natural. So versus they're not forced on it, So when things get forced, that's against nature. To me, it should always be.
Well, other than having an MMA bout between men.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
um, so yeah. Other than that, I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking
Mm-hmm.
about. Which is where women. But a lot of what a woman wants comes based on background influences,
True.
and again, we come back down to the particular part about values, ethics, and morals. If it's being taught within a home,
Mm-hmm.
And this has to do with a cultural affiliation that it has to do with cultural affiliation or cultural influence that is being taught within the home, which is
Mm-hmm.
going to also be the product or the results later on when they become adults.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, and it goes back to having a strong male. Like your father is supposed to be the one that influences you, and that's another factor too. Because, like you said, if you're biracial and you're like a girl and your father's a black man, that's who's setting the standards. That's who your role model is. So usually they go after black men because that's their. My dad was white, but I don't really like white guys. I don't know. I like biracial guys, so I don't know. It's weird, but that's a whole other factor too. That usually people go after, like the male or female role model that was set in their homes. And if it's like a lot of biracial men, they your mom was white, so you usually go after a white woman. So that's like another thing. But now, if we come together and become our own parents, we could have that type of foundation and structure, like, and setting our own role models for our kids instead of it. So that's a whole other factor too that plays into part. So yeah.
Yeah, we have to be really careful about that because the thing about it,
Mhm.
remember, a lot of outside social influences become a part of molding children.
Yep.
So whatever the outside influences that they see, which also to come from other households that can bleed over into society, will also to influence kids. So you have to look at that. But again, the main root of the issue where it should always start from is from inside of your home and teaching the kids basically ethics, morals, and values growing up and how to prepare them for becoming adult. Remember now, back in the days, they prepared you for being an adult, not prepared you for being a child or a teenager.
Yep. Yep. And I want to add Pedro. Hey, Pedro. It's my friend Pedro. Oh, is he still here? Okay. I don't think he's here.
Yo, what's up? I was driving real quick. My bad.
Oh, I just wanted to add you to the conversation. We're just talking about mixed. I know you're Latino, and I wanted
Oh,
to talk about this. So it's like when it comes to like biracial people, right? I dated a Latino guy for 3 years. He was completely of a different culture, but it was like it's a totally different dynamic when like a biracial person dates somebody outside of their culture, but it's not black or white culture. It's like Asian or Latino. It's like it's a totally different. It's like refreshing because it's like, oh, we're not at war. It's not against, like, you know what I'm saying. It's like if you're culturally black, biracial, and you date a culturally white, it's like these are two cultures that are just totally opposite and at ends with each other, versus like dating within a culture that's totally, you know, they're not at war with each other, right? And it's just like you get to just be there and just have the experience and learn about a different culture, and it's not like they're always attacking your own. So it's interesting. So I was just, it's interesting. There's so much things going on, but I think it is more than proximity. I like we do like we've already came up with those solutions of like we're gonna have these type of meet and greet events and stuff, and we just be like put it in the chat, put it one in the chat if you guys are interested in doing like meet and greet like type of events. Of course, we got to put our safety first and making sure like no crazy weirdos off the internet come, but actually like you got to verify your identity and actually come to like a nice space, and we could come together like somebody. I'm trying to plan that out with somebody, so put a one in the chat if you'd be interested in like a type of event like that where we could meet each other and actually get to know and bond with each other, because that the proximity thing is like the major factor there. So put a one in the chat if y'all would do that. So yeah, I got a one. Okay, we got a one. How about you, Tonel Neberg? Would you be interested in something like that? Like, if we were like, I want to go to Las Vegas or something, and for us, like,
oh
biracial
hell
people,
yeah.
yeah, we could like come
Sin City.
together. We could come together and like have like an event, and like we can meet and then like have like speakers and like have like just like a get together, like a fun little like week vacation or something like that. I'm trying to plan that out with somebody, but I just want to know if there's interest in it, because I'm interested. I want to get to know more, because I don't really have any in real. I have my husband and my kids, and that's it. Like I don't really have any biracial people I know in real life. So because I live in the Pacific Northwest, there's not too many of us. There is, but not really. So, Vegas, baby. You guys are ready for Vegas? Oh, you guys.
Ready, Eddie. That's where I
Hell yeah.
am.
Oh, you guys with it?
All day.
It said
Un,
okay.
un, unfor- unfortunately, it wouldn't be possible for me at all.
Oh no, you want to be able to make it? Aw. Okay. Oh, it's okay though. You'll be
I
there
just
in
completed a
spirit.
year, so I should be able to like take vacation.
We're taking a vacation. Hey, okay. So, okay. Well, some people, that'd be good. So, Future's Golden says our Pacific identifiers seem to get copied, which is why we have no strength. Ooh. Ooh, that's a good point. What y'all think about that? Is that why we have no power or strength because our
Um,
identifiers
I'm
always
not
getting?
I'm not exactly answering her answer. I'm not exactly understanding her question, but maybe some bit of a context or an example, so I'm not misunderstanding it.
Future, jump in the voice chat in my Discord. Where you at? Hold on. Where is she at? Jump in the voice chat. I want to know about your question. I think that was interesting. Where's she at? I'm gonna at her right now. Hold on. Future is golden. Jump into VC. How long y'all played on? We should just let this live ride a little bit longer. I don't know how long we've been live streaming for, but I'm good. I like this conversation, guys. I think it's really good. I'm gonna just let it ride a little bit longer. Do you guys got anything to do? What y'all doing?
I just got off of work. I'm unwinding right now.
Oh, cool. Okay, yeah, I ain't doing nothing.
Bought some CBD gummies.
Nice. Okay.
Gonna
Okay.
relax.
Okay. I'm trying to get Future in here so she can talk about her. Where's she at?
Oh, and I just ate, so I'm chilling.
Okay. It said without Pacifics, you have no power. Malaysian is Pacific. They could build on culturally and politically. And somebody said, I don't think Anglo culture has flexibility for you guys. Black culture ends up being too supremacist and ethnocentric. Hmm.
Well, as for the comment of saying is that as for the comment of saying that Anglo culture has, I don't think that Anglo culture has the flexibility for you guys. That I would disagree, um,
Hmm.
because we are part of Anglo culture.
We
Every
are.
single, every single thing we do, politically, views, everything is all basically offshooted from Anglos. So it's to distinguish ourselves from Anglo culture. It's like trying to remove thread, like a black and white thread, and trying to remove white thread from with a black. I'm sorry, trying to remove white thread from a cloth that is black and white woven. You're not going to have anything after that. So it's no, it's not, because everything that we do everything that we do in our daily lives have some aspect of Anglo influence involved into it. So, a matter of fact, it is the core. Even the African American culture, some may not are going to disagree with it or disagree with probably what I'm going to say, but its core comes from Anglos. It's not African as you think, because their perspective and views are basically reflections of some of white supremacy views.
Mm-hmm. But the
I
thing, well,
also wanted to
go ahead.
add on to that though, but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of like cultural like traits and even like features from the African American community actually come from roots and traits that came from like early like Scottish, Irish, and English immigrants during that time, especially mainly those from like Ulster County, like Ireland, and then the lower Scottish Highlands too, and even some other parts of Britain. How can you get rid of all of that? At least nowadays.
Mm-hmm. The thing about Anglo culture that has definitely hurt us in a way has been their complete rejection of like race mixing. They completely, like, it was outlawed in America versus, like, I did a live stream about this, about how Anglo culture versus like the Spaniards, whereas where the Spaniards, they never had any laws or anything against, miscegenation, race mixing, like they did here in America, because that was Anglo culture, how they were very much, very extremely exclusive. Like they just wanted very exclusive. They just didn't want really anything to do with anybody else but themselves. And they were very much had anti-miscegenation laws in place for 300 plus years. and that's definitely a part of their culture. That's something that's still in effect today. With like the very pro Anglo white supremacists that are very like remember the ones that attacked your page, Jordor? They're very much, they think you're dysgenic, and they're very much, they hate mixed people. Basically, they don't want. They think we're
Well,
tainted
yeah,
blood.
I still have the video that I screen recorded along with all
Yeah.
those screenshots.
So that's kind of
Yep,
like
I do
the
remember that.
right. That's kind of like the negative aspect of Anglo culture that is like we have to heal from. Of their, that's something that is, I guess, that has become part of like in the black community as well, right? Because they don't like race mixing as well either. They want to keep their community pure as much as they can too, right? So it's like
Yeah,
that's something, a part of
exactly.
the
And then
culture
even
that
like exactly, even by the way, the term black was coined by the Anglo elites, and there's a reason why
really, wow.
in the
Mm.
U.S. terms, yes, because even the term white is also coined by Anglo elites because
Hold on, you
there's
sound
also a
muffled a
reason.
little bit. What'd you say?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. I said that even whiteness was also coined by the Anglo elites because, like, Spanish conquistadors like Hernan Cortes,
Mm-hmm.
who said that his favorite son was a mestizo, Martin Cortes,
Mm-hmm.
he would not have wanted to be called white because that was just
Mm.
too much within the Anglo sphere.
Wow.
The Spanish didn't become white all of a sudden until they started to until so like the Spanish, the Portuguese, they didn't become white until like the
Mm-hmm.
Anglos started to come in and just hijack everything. So now
Wow.
Italians are now being called white, Greeks are being called white, now the Irish are being called white,
That was
even though
interesting.
they weren't
Mm-hmm.
really under the quote unquote white Anglo-Saxon umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
Even also, term blackness is likewise coined by them as well, and there's a reason why there are some Afro diasporas from around the world who don't understand that and will flat out say to you, "Hey, don't call me that. I'm not black."
So even black
Because they don't.
people
It's not that they
calling
deny
themselves
like their
black.
African lineage. But,
Uh-huh.
say that again.
No, so even black people calling themselves black, that was from Anglo culture and Anglo ideas. That's crazy.
Exactly.
That's
Because like when
crazy.
I was in yeah, because like when I visited Jamaica, because I spent a bit of some time in Montego Bay in Kingston in that country, they will just say that I'm Jamaican. That's it. They do not call themselves that. At least that's just not really what I remember. They just made it abundantly clear is that, hey, I'm Jamaican. End of story.
In the
Or
story.
even in the Dominican Republic, they'll just flat out tell you that, hey, I'm just Dominican. Don't call me that.
That's something, but
And it's because
that
they don't want
form,
anything to do with Anglo American culture,
but
which
that
is where those terms come
it's
from.
crazy because how we don't do that. We don't put our nationality first for the most part before like we're not be like, hey, we're American. That's in the story. But we have to include our race because America has been so segregated that there's been totally different cultures that's formed because of that segregation. So it's totally like schizophrenic. It's like you can't just say American because that will, when you think of America, you think of like a blonde eye, blue eyes person, and that's why we don't really claim it. Be like, oh, we're putting, because they make sure they put their image and their culture. That's the representation of what people think of America is, right? And it's like
Not
that.
anymore.
Not
Not
anymore. Okay,
anymore. No,
anymore.
no, no,
that's
no,
good.
not anymore.
Okay,
No,
that's
it's
good.
not.
I think the
If
representation of an American is like some really big guy sitting at a McDonald's, just like scarfing down burgers and just got like a big gold drink and drinking a
uh,
frosty.
just got back from
I,
Walmart.
I would,
Well,
Yeah.
I would,
Future is in
Yeah.
here. Hey,
I would,
you.
Oh, there's
yeah, I would say,
Future. Awesome. Hey, Future.
I, I would
Hey
say back.
everybody, what are you doing?
What up, girl? I wanted to clarify your question. It said that I think you guys are making some good points about like identifiers and how we need our own and So what was? Hold on. I wanted to go back to what was the question? Oh my gosh, I think I lost it. It was like our identifiers get copied and that's why we have no power. That was a pretty interesting
Oh, like
question.
co-opted, like
Co-opted.
co-opted,
Oh, I thought
or
you said copied.
they're very
Okay.
like
All
they're
right.
very like broad, or they get co-opted. So they'll give us terms like multiracial, or they'll give you terms like mixed or biracial, and then
Mhm.
you'll just be using it for one set of people, and then the other groups of people will come along and say, "Oh, this term is for us too,"
Mhm.
So when
Oh,
I was saying, he was saying that he was talking about like unity
Yeah.
and how I think biracial unity is the person's username. They were just talking about like unity and how they viewed the different terms. But I was just saying like some of the terms like they start getting used by other groups. You know, they'll get co-opted or maybe they were made with them in mind in the first place. I'm not sure. But
Mhm.
and then they just said that Latino is another one, like Latino and Hispanic. Like pretty
Mhm.
much they're just lumping all of these different ethnicities into this one group. But
Mhm.
it doesn't seem to it doesn't seem to work for them necessarily because they're all different. You know, they all have different identities.
Mhm. Interesting.
So that's what we were talking about in the chat.
Mhm. I agree. We do need our own like identifier. That's why it's hard. I'm gonna have this live stream later, guys. Okay, let's focus on. But it's cool. We have a. It stresses me out honestly because I'm like, oh my god, it stresses me out. But it's cool. We could.
Oh, okay.
Oh, anyway, no. Let's go back to the American thing. Hold on, hold on. How it said, I agree. Anyone with the states is American. So we're all literally American. Like anybody born and raised here, we're American, right? And it's like, but I'm saying it's like, I don't know. I can't just say that. Like in America, if you live in America, every single if you have to fill out a loan, if you have to go to school, when you go to school, when you do anything, a job application, it always has to there's race on every single thing. Like you can't just say I'm American on every single. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I don't know because race is still such a big thing in America because of how Anglo Americans they put it like that because they have a racial hierarchy where they want to be the ones on top. That thing might be dying out because they're not really. But we know that like in the future that things are going to be way more mixed up and it's not going to just be so black and white as we say. But it's just how it is right now. It's like that whole racial hierarchy thing is weird. I don't go by it, but that's what the Anglos tried to put in place if to put
that when
themselves
they
in.
when they were the majority and when they did have
Mm-hmm.
control,
Right.
when they did have control. But remember now, a lot of people, the first Anglo-Saxons that came here to this country,
Mm-hmm.
they were not like that. They were never always like that. This is
Mm-hmm.
more of a cult fashion,
Mm-hmm.
um, 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 sectarianism of Christianity. That because remember the
Mm.
whole thing of about blackness, about having blackness or African blood was comes from the curse of comes from the biblical part where they actually believe Anglo-Saxon Protestants actually believe that black people were descendants of I think Shem or
Ham.
yeah
Ham.
Ham.
They
Yep.
of
go by
Ham.
like the curse of Ham
Yeah,
theory,
correct.
whereas they
So
actually
correct.
there's a yes.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, what I was just going to lastly say is that there's actually a very like heretical like sect of like Christianity. It's called a Christian identity, in which they believe that only those of Anglo-Saxon descent are
Mm.
those who descend from the 12 tribes of Israel and are God's true chosen people.
Wow.
And
Oh my
anything
God.
that
No
is
way.
along the lines of black or darkness is of Ham, who was cursed.
Well, damn. So they had that thing
And
too. So
and
they
that's
they
where
they're
the
the chosen
Yes.
and
people.
the one drop rule
Mm-hmm.
basically came, or the one drop rule was influenced by that, because
I did not know that.
if your influence had black blood, that's what
Wow.
made you black. You're no longer pure because white stood for something as
Wow.
being someone who was purely, well, of European or Anglo-Saxon origin.
Wow. It's so
And
obvious
that
now. Wow. That there was some religious influence on that. I didn't connect the
Yes.
dots until now. Wow.
yeah, Anglo-Saxon came here, they had no problem of marrying. They had no problem when the Anglo-Saxons or the settlers came over here first. They were marrying Africans were marrying Irish people. Well, Irish wasn't considered to be white there, but it was very prominent
Mm-hmm.
for Africans to be marry Irish, and
Mm-hmm.
then some Anglo-Saxon women were marrying basically black slaves because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the black slaves, the first group of black slaves that came up, they were freed. So when they were freed, How did they populate? Where did they go? They didn't have whom, they had partners that basically they married and had kids.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened is this started a big political thing with wealth transfer and so on. And this
Yeah.
is where they started making the rules to disenfranchise mixed people, because it wasn't per
Mm.
se black people with the problem. Is that when a black person and a white person got together, then and that produces a mixed race person, that was the problem and the biggest threat towards white.
Wow. It's crazy though, is that I did that last stream I did, how I was researching like the difference between like American versus like how Latin America is so mixed now. How in Paraguay, somebody shared with me, in Paraguay they actually forced you know, mixed race people. Actually, no, they forced European men to marry. It was out like same race marriages were outlawed, and they forced them to marry either African or an indigenous woman so they can pass down the wealth, because they were trying to cure like the wealth inequality. So they forced it on people to marry people of a different race so they could distribute the wealth more. But here in America, it's like they didn't want that at all. They wanted to keep all the money and the power within their own community, right? And so they went to the extremes and went to like the one drop. You can we don't have nothing to do. So it's just crazy. I didn't know that
Yeah.
religious influence was definitely a big
Religious
factor.
influence had a big major
Wow.
impact on
But how I
on
wonder
on
I wonder
racial
what
issues that we're currently having right now today in this country.
That's crazy. I didn't really understand. So I wonder what the different religious. I would love for somebody to speak on this. Like in Latin culture, it's like they had a different way to. I wonder if their religious lens were different than the ones that were like Christian. Because it's the same.
Well,
I don't know. Like how the Catholic. I don't know. I want somebody to speak on this, but they have a way totally different like religious lens. So maybe that led to them you know, not really caring too much about race mixing versus here where it's like, oh, we're pure. We're the pure chosen ones. So it's like that had a big factor in, the segregation and the one drop rule and all this crazy stuff that happened here. So it's wow. I'm really mind blown right now. I'm kind of taking it in. So,
Anglo-Saxons brought, let me properly say it, Anglo-Saxon Protestants, which are known as WASP.
Protestants, the
Yeah,
wasp.
WASP. Yeah, the
I,
WASP group in American history, which
hmm
they don't teach you that, of course, in
The
American history. You
no.
have to go digging for it. Yeah,
Hmm.
the WASP group. Yeah, they were the ones that their beliefs, which were completely fueled by religion,
Hmm.
influenced by it to an almost to a cult fashion.
Hmm.
And then because when you look at how they were running their states or their territories, the colonized territories, and then you compared it to the Spanish, completely different.
Way different.
And
That's what
then
I say.
then
Now I
compare it to the
understand.
French, and then compared it to the
Way
French,
different.
completely different.
Way different. And it was because of that religion. At the end of the day, that was what was making them. Wow. I'm really mind blown by that. Like, wow. Mm-mm-mm.
And
Because I.
they were all and these were groups that were all professed of being of Christianity, but it was different.
Hmm.
There was a different sect of Christianity that had different beliefs.
Hmm. Wow. So on one hand, what America is the most powerful country in the world, right? On one hand, you know. Then on the other hand, what did you have to do to get? You had to segregate and enslave and do all this stuff to get there. So it's like it's crazy because they are. Somebody told me this. They were like, white people are so powerful because they exclude people because they are exclusive. And do you guys agree with that? Because it's kind of interesting. It was like a different take on things. Because I'm like, on one
At,
hand,
at
white
least the
people,
ones here in the U.S. are the ones who racially gatekeep a lot, but in other
yeah.
countries, the racial configuration is going to be different.
You guys think that's what makes them powerful? Is because they racially gatekeep so much? What do you guys think about that? I don't know.
It's a factor though, say, but they're also like practitioners of things like nepotism and like stewardship. In other words, like you transfer your wealth to your next generations, you
Hmm.
give them the power, you hand it over.
That's what it
You
boils down
basically make
to.
sure that your successors are going to have what you had.
that's what they didn't want with us. They didn't want, like, if you have a mixed race child, they don't get anything. Like, you're not gonna get no power, no wealth. You're gonna make sure it only goes to white children, and so that's how you have like the generational, the old money built up, and then you could
Correct.
build communities. You could, but but what if they did give that money and wealth? Then that money and wealth to mixed kids, and then they marry a black person, and then those kids become black, and then like it's like that's what they didn't want. They didn't want it to go into the black community. I don't think. It's crazy. It's
Well,
crazy.
well,
Yeah, even
if
when,
yeah,
even
because if
when
that
black
money,
people get
if
married
that
to them now, even when black people get married to them now, like let's say you have athletes that are making a lot of money,
It goes into the white
um,
community.
it goes back into the white community.
Yes,
They
it
talk
does.
about that. They figure out a way to like make sure that it works out in their favor
Isn't that
because they'll
crazy?
pay them all the salary, but they're already having their eye out on dating some of the white women. So once they marry them and get a divorce from them, all of that money that they made goes back to those white women. Like just basically what just happened with Kanye. So
Wow. Wow.
Well, guys, I gotta step out for a bit, but this has been an awesome stream.
Yeah, it's been great.
Been a
Wow.
pleasure.
Absolutely. All right, I'll talk to you later, Georgia. Okay, have a good night.
okay, bye,
Likewise,
Georgia.
take care.
I'm shook right now, to be honest.
Over
I'm
the topic
shook
of like the
because we talk
religious issue.
about because we talk about the one drop rule, but that aspect never gets brought up about how it was white people thinking they're the chosen ones and feeling like, oh, we have to exclude everybody who's
mm-hmm.
not. No, I've never heard that before until now. And we've been talking
Yep.
about the one drop rule for a long time, so I'm so happy that you actually brought that, because that's a
That's
big major
that,
factor.
that's why among the during the Spanish acquisition, and then also to Spanish colonies and French colonies, the Spanish and French colonies, when it dealt with mixing, the Spanish colony basically had kind of favored, in a sense, what my perspective was, as mentioned to you, about wanting what's best for your children.
Yeah.
So one of the things that they believe is they believed in the whitening. So if you're African, their descendants, to try to make everybody, they believed in the whitening. The old school Spanish elders believed in there's a concept for it. It was a Spanish saying or something like that. You might have to look it up. That they believe in basically in the whitening, whereas Anglo-Saxon or Anglo-American or Anglo-Americans believe no. They believe in the complete opposite. They believe once you have that admixture in anywhere in the part of the blood, all the way down to 1/8. They imagine that they had to actually go
1/8,
1/4, 1/8, or
1/16.
1/10,
Crazy,
1/16.
right?
They made
That's
up all these
insane.
crazy things to come up to say that if you were considered to be white or you were considered to be non-white or black, it was real,
That's
regardless of your
crazy.
phenotype.
That is so
Regardless if you
insane.
showed,
I've heard about
if you
that.
had blue eyes, green eyes, blonde hair, straight, and you looked like any of them, you could
Yeah.
not be able to distinguish them. It was the
I've
weirdest thing, and
I've heard about
that's
that.
where it
That
came
people
from.
divorced, like back in the day, white people they would marry, and if they found out you had a great 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 grandfather that was black, then they would divorce you. Like that's crazy. It's insane. It's just the level they took it to was just freaking crazy. But yeah, like somebody said, black people do this exactly with the whole from Negroes to Hebrews. Like saying they're the real chosen people. There's a whole group of black people thinking they're the chosen ones, and it's like a crazy cycle. It's like what is it? Everybody's the chosen one, so everybody thinks they're the chosen one basically. So I don't know. I don't know about that. That's
It's true.
it's
It's
true, isn't
true.
it? Everyone's like the chosen people out here. So I wanted. He says that the Spanish Southerners were, yeah, exactly. The Spanish people, they were mixed because they were conquered by the Moors at one point, right? For 500 years, and they were mixing
Yeah,
with the
for
Moors.
more than 700 years
700
they were
years.
conquered.
Wow.
Yes, the North African Moors. Of course, there's a debate: were they black or were they Arab? Well, guess what? They
They're
were
black.
black. They
They
were
were black.
Arab. They were also too mixed.
They were
There
mixed.
was also too mixed. They basically conquered the Iberian Peninsula, and it was for over 700 years until after the Spanish Inquisition, which basically ended up pushing them out. And where did they learn all this stuff from in regards to where to get slaves from, etc.? Well, from the Islamic conquest, in which many of the other empires, the African empires in the West Central Africa, when they folded, they merged in. They basically assimilated into to they assimilated with the Moors as part of the Moorish fleet that went and invaded the Iberian Peninsula, and that lasted for over 700 years.
This is something that is totally left out of education systems, because I think this is why there's such a pushback in us having our own community. But this has been going on for since humans began. Like people, different groups coming together, creating mixed race people, and then they become their own group, and that it's just been happening forever. So it's like there's nothing new. And so now if like biracial people want to come together and create their own community, that there were two products of two different races, it's like pushback. It's like, no, you can't do that. But it's like this has been going on forever. So what's the issue? It's totally left out though. It's totally not even talked about within the American system. It's always like this group, this group, this group, this group, but they don't talk about how this group and this group came together and created another group, and they, you know what I'm saying? So it's like it's always, and then coming from the black pro sector, like there's so much pushback, especially towards mulattoes, because there's like the whole concept of, oh, these mulattoes, they rose up and they destroyed black civilization, and they were totally, that's why there's a lot of fear mongering around like biracial people claiming their identity and creating groups in their own communities, because they're scared that biracial mulatto people are going to be against black people, and that's crazy too, right? But what you think about that?
Practically what they're looking at is perhaps something happening to which what happened in Haiti. Haiti's
Yes.
history with the Dominican Republic. Yeah,
Right.
there's a strong history there, and I think blacks within this country that studied that history and saw that is using that as an exemplar, and also to using that as an exemplar, but also to, when you look at South Africa, the mixed race population there, the coloreds are being oppressed by the
Coloreds.
blacks.
Wow. They are? I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah, it's complete reverse.
Wow.
So
That's crazy.
In Haiti and Dominican Republic, it's one way. It's well, Dominicans have a ruling hand over Haitians, and historically wise, they put it in a historical sense. I would rather Dominicans more comment on that particular thing. But my dad went there because he married a Dominican woman that was there, and I asked him. I said, "Dad, did you have a problem there?" And my dad is as black as night. I mean, if they were to see him, so for some reason they were able to tell my dad was not Haitian, that he was an American, that he wasn't from he wasn't Haitian, but he was American. They didn't give him no problem there. But I saw plenty of videos that where Haitians were giving a lot of crap in the Dominican in the Dominican in the Dominican Republic, for just being black, I guess, or racial conflict within that country. And now on the reverse side, in South Africa, South African coloreds, there's plenty of videos up about them being oppressed by black Africans.
It's crazy. It's like oppression is a cycle, because I think about like the Jewish people in Palestine too, how they started off being oppressed by Hitler and the Nazis, and them being killed off and all that stuff, and then they go to not Ireland, Israel. Sorry,
Israel.
they go
Mhm.
to Israel, and now
Yeah.
they're trying to oppress and take over the people in Palestine, and it's crazy. It's like a cycle. It's like whatever dominant group they're always going to be want to stay in power, and they're going to oppress others and prevent others from becoming in power. And it's like it's crazy to me. It's like I guess this is
There,
just
there is a term I have for that. The oppressed eventually become
the
oppressors.
oppressors, exactly, and it's crazy. So do you guys think that would happen with us? Like if we become like the dominant group, we would be oppressive to others. Like even it's crazy. It's like wow.
It
Well,
could happen because there's just different reasons why people's numbers are falling.
Mhm.
It could happen, but it might be unlikely. But like, let's say all of the groups that are rising in number will possibly overshadow the groups that are decreasing in number. So like white is
Mm.
decreasing in number, black is decreasing in number, but like Asian, Latino, mixed race is increasing in number. So I mean, it
Yeah,
could happen,
and it's like
you
no
know.
matter what religion is in place, every religion preaches the same thing at the end of the day. You should treat people right. You should do this and do this. Like every major religion, spiritual system. And at the end of the day, they still all do the same stuff. They still try to,
Right.
right?
All
they,
right,
s-
or better yet, they use religion to
they use religion
justify
to
what they're
justify
doing.
it. Facts.
Yes,
It's insane
right.
to me. Like I was about to say that's why we need to have spiritual principles and practices in place so we don't continue that cycle. But it's like historically they all had spiritual religion practices in place and they still continued the cycle. I think it's just when people get power, that's what they show you who you truly are, right? You don't really know somebody until you give them a little bit of power, and it's like it's scary. It's just like the communism, the Stalin situation, right? Stalin, how he will like played like he was so friendly and charismatic to everybody and he was just so nice, and then he got a little bit of power and he showed his true self. Like he would kill people and do all these insane crazy things, and it's like absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? So it's like I think that I don't know. I think there should be power balances and stuff. So I don't want to. It's just crazy to me. I don't know how that's just like a human that's been going on for centuries and millennia, and it's scary because it's like we don't know what that's. I don't know what it's like to be like part because if we're half white, we're not really part of like the white, like we are a little bit, but not really. We're not really. They don't really see us as one of them, right? Of course, that's fine. And we don't know what that's
Sure.
like. You know what I'm saying? We
Are
don't know
you
what that.
are you sure about that?
Well, in
Are,
America,
are,
we'll say America. We'll say in America. We'll say that, okay? Especially if you're more like black person, like me. I couldn't pass us no white person ever, not in a million years, no. But I'm just saying we don't know what it's like to be like have that dominant majority power. We don't know what that's like. I don't know what that's like. Like mixed people are still we're a minority in the black community. Black community is a minority, and we're a minority. We're a minority at the end of the day, and we don't know what it's like to have that majority power whatsoever. We don't know what we would do with it. We don't know. So it's just we just gotta learn from history. So I don't know. It's
well,
just
history definitely tells us not to be like our ancestors
exactly
on either
facts,
side. and
facts.
and and that's the thing that I support or I'm hoping for the future of this country is that when we do become the predominant racial group within the United States, that we don't act like how our ancestors did. And but
Absolutely.
it comes from as again it comes from what you teach your children basically in your homes, because there is a lot of hatred and racism that is going to bleed over into society in the way how and into the societal perspective of things, and probably in a completely fictional part of history as well too, because right now at the moment, when I was growing up, they used to say that when I used to hear, well, actually, no, not in the Caribbean, but when I came here to the United States, I used to hear a lot of says, "Oh, that white people captured us, enslaved us, etc." So in my mind, I'm thinking that Europeans went into Africa,
Exactly.
captured black people and slaves, kidnapped them,
Right.
literally
Right.
kidnapped them from the land, and it comes to find out that that's not what happened. What happened is Africans went and captured and kidnapped Africans, took the
Yep.
land, and basically and exiled you from out of
Exactly.
and then exiled you
I
into
had that
slavery.
same notion. I used to think the same thing, stolen from Africa, right? To America. We used to think the same thing. And it was like you actually learn real history. It's like somebody brought up receipts of like an African king that was like, hey, how about I give you these people that we conquered, and that instead of just killing them off, it was like a tribal wars. And instead of just killing them off like I usually would do, I'll just sell them to you and you guys could have them, basically. So it was
The
kind of
homie
like, hey,
tribe,
yeah, it
the
was kind of
homies
like,
that took
uh huh.
major part into slavery,
Yeah,
major part
exactly.
into slavery,
Exactly.
slave trade.
Yeah, and it's like people don't want to tell the full truth, the full story about anything. So it's like it's crazy. But I think us, like, we want to know like everything. We want to know the full truth. We don't have a bias there. You know how like people have like such a bias in history where it's like they only want to see their people like the good and what their people did, or they don't ever want to see like the bad. But it's like I feel like we really don't have a bias. Like we just want to see the good, bad, ugly, and we don't really have a racial bias there. When it comes to like how people say history. But it's just really interesting. And I wanted to talk about I forgot. Wait. yeah, let me see. It says it makes sense. You will always want to blame us Europeans, and it's true. People always want to blame Europeans for every bad thing that's ever happened throughout history. It's true. And yeah, the Bob Marley. uh, yeah, why kill them if you can make some money off? That was their thinking exactly. That's what they thought. And yeah, so okay, but I want to talk about this is why. So my thinking, because okay, you know how like the whole Latino and biracial American unity thing, right? So we're gonna throw unity out the window. People don't like the word unity. People don't like that word. I want to say we're working together with the Latino community because we got some common goals and common things that we want to accomplish, right? We'll just say we're working together because here's my thinking. So I think in America, these two groups, like us, like biracial mixed people, and the Latino community and population, they're gonna become like the majority groups. It's gonna be like how black and white, the like the main majority groups in America right now. So I don't want us, like the biracial American people and the Latino community and the people. I don't want us going back and forth and having like this whole crazy culture war like the black and white people do in America. I want us to just be at peace with each other. Be like, hey, you have your own community, you have your own culture. We can work together, and we'll call it a day. Instead of it, you guys think there'll be like a big cultural clash and a cultural? I don't know. I just want us to maintain on good terms with each other. So it's not like, oh, you guys did this to us, you did this. There's like this whole terrible history, like there is with black and white people, of like white people doing all this with the black people, and now there's just this turmoil and this bad blood, and it's like, so what do y'all think about that?
I personally don't think when you use the term to be allying ourselves with Hispanic people, it's it makes it kind of sound in a particular sense. It makes it sound in a sense, or gives the prestige that there was some sort of disconnect between us and Hispanic people,
I
which
don't
there
think
has never
there's
been.
Yeah, there's never been a
There,
disconnect. Yeah, I
yeah.
don't think there's been a disconnect.
There's never been. Listen, I
Mhm.
was completely. I'm around Hispanic. I was raised around Hispanic people all the time, and the people that I fit in when there wasn't,
Exactly.
I fit in mostly with was around Hispanics, but and I got
Exactly.
along very well. But the
Mhm.
only thing is that distinguished me from a person that was Hispanic. Well,
Mhm.
they were also they were also they're also too mixed as well too.
Mhm.
But the only thing that distinguish myself from Hispanics is culture.
Mhm. And
Now,
yeah,
if
it's a
you
different culture, right? Mhm.
is culture, because let's say for instance, if things started to get heated up, it could
Mhm.
always be thrown into your face. Well, you're not Hispanic, you would never understand, or you don't know,
Mhm.
etc. That may come up because if nobody has no other reason, no other object or any ammunition to be able to throw at you to justify some sort of prejudice or something to distinguish you or to alienate you, then that will definitely come up.
Yeah,
Are
exactly.
are are, are Spanish people are Spanish people known to do that? No, not really.
Mm-mm.
But I think they're more. I think Spanish people in general, from what they're more hospitable
Mhm.
in wanting other people to teach they're more hospitable and open of bringing people into the culture and to learn the culture.
Mhm. And that's what I hear people are afraid of because it's like, oh, we don't want to merge with them because we're so easily absorbed within other cultures, and it's like we want to create our own culture, and it's like I understand that. I totally feel the same. I was like, yeah, we do want to have our own culture. We want to, and that's what people are afraid of with this whole unity thing. That's why I say it's not a unity. It's not. We should just say we're just working together, right? I think that'd be a appropriate term where it's not scaring people, where it's like, oh, I don't want to, assimilate to somebody else. You know what I'm saying? It's just about, I think that'd be, what do you guys think about? Would that be a more appropriate term? Would be like us working together. What do you guys think?
I don't know. I think when people think of the word unity, they just think of some of the maybe failed efforts of the past to unify different groups.
Mm,
And like kind of
mm-hmm.
like a lot of warring factions, you know. So basically,
Yeah, true.
unity. I don't know. Unity seems like it sounds good,
Right.
but in theory, but in practice, it always comes out to be something different. So
Mhm.
I feel like individual Latinos, of course, you're going to get along with them. They're like really nice people usually. But
Mhm.
in terms of like thinking there'll be like a political type of unity, I don't know how that would work.
Mhm.
It has to do with what's going on with the United States, to be fair, and
Mhm.
very little to do with mixed people, you know? Like whatever problem
Mm.
the United States has with the Latino community or with immigration from Latin America, that will play out into what goes on with the Latino population. And
Mhm.
it will be the same for all of the groups, white, black, Asian, mixed. It'll be the same for all of us because we just be Americans
Yeah.
versus people coming from Latin America and the issues that are going on over there. So, like, we don't necessarily know what's going on with the United States government in Latin America because a lot of
Mhm.
time they'll come home and say, well, they're messing up our government, so that's why we're coming here. But we don't
Mhm.
really know what they're doing over there. So that's another
Mm.
thing. You're being held accountable, like in personal relationships, to something you don't know anything about. So,
Mm.
yeah. So the Latin community, like unity. I mean, it sounds good, but it remains to be seen how it will work out.
Mhm.
But
We'll
I have
see.
faith.
Mhm. I think it'll be
I'm
good.
sure you'll.
We're gonna see. I'm gonna see.
Right.
I think it'll be good. You gotta just have some good faith and see what will happen in the future. We'll see because
I
what
mean,
I'm trying. Yeah, go ahead, Tono.
if any people within the Americas that we are the
Mhm.
closest to are is definitely absolutely Hispanic people.
Mhm.
Is that it's without because yeah, it's without doubt if it's anybody that we can more relate to in the
Mhm.
Americas and being American or it's definitely Hispanic people.
Mm, yep. And I think it's good. I think it's a positive move for us to work with them. And of course, we're going to continue to focus on our own community and trying to build it and trying to unify with ourselves because we are very disunified right now because we don't really have those open lines of communication, and we got to make sure like we come together, you know what I'm saying, and us trying to work together and build with ourselves. And and I think we could do both. I could work together with another group of people, and then we could work together with ourselves, and try to focus more on ourselves, of course, right? You can't, you know and but I still think we could definitely have room to nurture that relationship as well. To make sure that that relationship is good, and making sure that we nurture our own relationship with ourselves and the people within our community too, making sure it's good. And yeah, but I think this was a good conversation, you guys. You guys have any last words or anything you guys want to say before I end the stream? I really loved it. I think it was great. I thank you, Hotel Breaker, for reaching out to me so we could. I think you made some great points that we had to focus on. But I think it is about like we do need to come together as community, create our own culture because that's the main barrier. There is the proximity and the cultural factors that prevent us from coming together and creating our but yeah, you guys have any last words about this before I go before we end the stream?
Yeah, you have to start with values. You have
Mm-hmm.
to culture. Basically, there is no culture
Mm-hmm.
without. Well, I shouldn't say that because some cultures could just be straight all out beast mode and just only all about politics that have
Mm.
no values, that have no ethics and morals.
Right.
But it's best to basically to start out with values, ethics, and morals, and start out with a standard on that. Which basically codifies a group of people in which we live by these particular standards. So that's the best way to basically to start out, and of course to start teaching your kids.
I love that. I got an ethic and value I want to propose to us. I really want us to not attack each other. We've seen that a lot in these spaces. How like biracial mixed people, we just been attacking each other left and right about everything. So that's something I do want to propose. I don't want us to sit here and attack each other all the time, all day, every day, and just I'm that's something I'm gonna hold myself to. I'm not gonna attack nobody. I'm just not like I'm not gonna do that. That's an ethnic value and code. If you're I'm not gonna Which is nothing I'm gonna do. That's something that's not in my heart or spirit to want to do. So, what do you think, future? You have any like ethnic values or codes or something that we should go by that we should propose here and hold ourselves to a standard?
What do you mean as mixed people, or are you talking
Yeah,
about in terms
as
of
like in
the
our
attacking
communities.
people issue?
No, in our communities, that's something I want to hold myself a standard to. I'm not going to sit here and attack other people and degrade them and demean them and try to, ruin their. I'm not going to do that to other biracial people at all. I don't. That's not in my heart. But is there any other like values or standards or something that we should hold ourselves to in a community? Like any standards we should. You have anything that you think that would be good for us? Like
What do I think? I mean, I think people need to, increase the quality of their education. Like they
yes,
should really take
education very
education
important.
seriously and
Absolutely.
pursue it. And also, focusing on like careers of the future. So
Mhm.
I guess the STEM careers, but also just like code of ethics and dealing with each other. Like this space probably would be an abnormal comparison to the real world.
Right.
So in the real world, like you very rarely would you have people attacking and carrying on in this manner. I think it's just the
Right.
matter in which we set up channels, and
Mhm.
it's usually set up in competition as opposed to
Mm.
being cooperative. But
Right.
I would just say like I don't want to say treat others the way you want to be treated, because there's always going to be people that think of everything as a hierarchy where somebody has to be at the top and others have to be at the bottom. They
Mhm.
can't just be equal to other people. So to
Mhm.
me, I'm fine with being equal to other people, but
Mhm.
you are going to run into people who feel like they need to try to assert some type of dominance. And honestly, they spend all their time doing it and they usually
Mhm.
fail because, I mean, you can't lead somebody else unless they want to be led by you. So,
Mhm. Yeah. I
yeah, I would
definitely,
say
yeah,
that.
it's a good point. Like, I definitely think education, we should be definitely, definitely. I know, Mr. Anthony Ali, he's gonna have a book club. We should all join the book club. We could join, like, we read a bunch of books, and I'm totally with that. I love that. That should be a deep value is education. That's something that we should definitely, embrace and uphold. And yeah, I love that very much. And yeah, totally. All right, guys. You guys have any more? You guys have any more? I really love this. Um,
No, I wanted to come up though. I was in the middle of something, but I wanted to come up and say hi to
Thank you.
everybody.
I appreciate
Like,
it so much. It was a good convo, guys. I definitely,
that was a nice convo.
uh huh. I loved it, and I definitely want to a book club. Yep, we're gonna do a book club. And I definitely think that we should think about this more about like what are going to be our values and principles and what we're going to build our community on. And we're all going to come together in an agreement of like, okay, this is our values and principles and foundation in our that we're going to, agree. If you want to be part of this community, then you have to agree to this. And that's what we're going to hold each other accountable to. Right. So,
Oh, wait, you're saying if they want to be a part of this community, they have to agree to these
yeah.
different principles.
Is that
That
wrong?
would be interesting. No, it's not wrong at all. It's just interesting because I wonder how I mean, everything is just different. Everything is rapidly changing.
Mm-hmm.
So, we'll see how things pan out. But it would be interesting to have people come in under a set of guidelines versus just coming in
Yeah,
willy
we need that
nilly and
set of guidelines. I think we
whatever.
do. I think that'd be really good for us. We have this set of guidelines and we hold each other accountable to it. And nothing crazy, like, just nothing crazy, just like basic, code of conduct type of thing. I don't know.
Like common sense how you
Yeah.
deal with other
Because,
things.
like you
Like,
said, YouTube is the wild, wild west out here. Like people are just acting any kind of way, acting crazy. Because it's like you could be anonymous, and then you could just go on a limb and just go say anything, treat anybody. Because people, they feel like they could do that if they're anonymous. But it's like if we wouldn't have, because I want it to transfer offline too. Like I want to feel safe enough to come together and actually in real life. But as of right now, I don't feel safe. Like if I wanted to like do a meet and greet, I wanted to make sure, hey, we all have these community guidelines that we can practice online and it could transfer offline. Where it's like, okay, you guys could do this online, we could do it offline, actually meet and greet, where it's not gonna go crazy and everyone's gonna start a bunch of drama and everything's just gonna fall apart. And I want to have a safe community at the end of the day, where I can meet offline with people and actually have a good time, and so
So I'm going to leave you with this.
Mm-hmm.
Ethics, morals, and values start in the way how you represent yourself and
Absolutely.
for as a community. So it doesn't, you don't have to be the lead of the community, is that you being yourself, representing yourself in in a particular fashion or of conduct, etc., is something that will take you a long way, which can also to influence other people. Because
Yeah.
as mixed race people grow up, they're going to be like, listen, it's never the ending, because one thing that mixed race people do is they float in trying to figure out
Yeah.
which way,
Exactly.
where should they settle in, which what
Facts.
what is more comfortable. And the thing about it, there's nothing that can replace, there's nothing superior than basically, nothing better and more influential than proper conduct.
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
agree, Tonal Breaker. Very well stated.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll end it on that, like having that, making sure we're, representing ourselves well and having that type of like code of conduct type of thing. We'll work on that, just kind of throwing it out there, and then we'll think about it. Just something to think about for us, and we'll talk about it more. We're still trying to build and trying to heal from the past and build our future. And it's going good. I really am proud of everybody here. I'm really grateful for everybody that showed up tonight. Thank you guys so much. I'm looking forward to more of these types of conversations. I love them. I enjoy them with you guys, and it's been great. Yeah. All right, guys. You guys have a great night.
Alrighty, cool.
Good night.
You too.